the Accelatis Essentials webinar on dashboards. And if you haven't joined one of these before, this is a 15-minute webinar, so we're going to keep it nice and concise. We will be recorded and available for you after the, after the broadcast. And because of the short nature of the webinar, we won't take an interactive Q&A session, but you feel free to send questions at any time. My email address is at the end of the webinar if you don't have it already. Okay. And today we're going to cover dashboards, creating dashboards, what is meant by them, and what comes out of the box. Okay. So again, dashboards in Accelatis, as in any product, are a means of visualizing data. So Accelatis in particular, we're looking at all sorts of different data, real-time monitoring data, change audit tracking, what users are doing. And dashboards are a way of aggregating all that and presenting it in very concise ways that we can quickly determine if something's of interest to us. Many dashboards are created out of the box by what we call best practices. So the implementation wizard will generate various KPI dashboards and health dashboards, but custom dashboards can be created as needed, and we'll create one during the session today. Okay, so dashboards typically get organized in a number of ways, and it really depends on how you're organized and what your interests are. So sometimes one might be technology focused. So depending on how you're organized, you might have one person who's focused on all the databases and another person who's focused on all the storage or CPUs or memory. So you might have someone who is looking at all the different servers supporting all the applications for a specific set of infrastructure components. Otherwise, you might have them focused by application. So all the things that are needed for a particular application, whether it's Essbase or OBIE or JD Edwards or Cognos or HFM, all the things, hardware, infrastructure, as well as application things rolled up into elements that are focused on that app. It could be user-focused, really just an arbitrary arrangement that's, created by the needs of the user. And we'll look at doing one of those today. Okay, so some widget types, again, each one of these types has many actual widgets that present in this way, but there are various lists, and some lists might have percentages and call them data lists. There's pie charts, for kind of visualizing percentage of a whole. There's some basic text and instruction, so if we want to create a dashboard that users can have some instructions of how to read the dashboard, we'll add one of those today as well. Various gauges, and then there's different types of graphs for showing trending, as well as bar charts for showing kind of how things relate to each other. Okay? And again, there's lots of specific widgets that leverage the type, and then some other types which you may not be aware of if you haven't played with it, but you could just drop in an arbitrary browser control and point to some website of your choice. There's some that are really Accelatis data specific, like report viewers. There's some calendar schedules for automation and change audit tracking. In the last year, we introduced this concept of coverage KPIs. So this is not, coverage widget. So this is not real-time reporting, but it's more about coverage of what percentage of health checks do we have against each product, or how many properties are we managing, things like that. We also have widgets for showing who's subscribing to various reports, either by user or by report. And then there's some more things which are Accelatis related, things like summary data, so showing automation summary or optimization summary or environment summary, basically what's been implemented within Accelatis. And we'll look at a couple of these when we get into the product. Okay, so there's a couple ways to view these. The dashboards module is something that people are most familiar with. I'm going to show a dashboard widget, which is a standalone component for viewing dashboards. There's the portal. And then one thing I didn't mention here is that many of the widgets come in forms that can be introduced into a report, so you could get it via PDF or HTML report. Not all the widgets are available that way, but some are, and they can be introduced into a performance report. So thinking about a dashboard and how to create it, you should think about it as a grid, and each widget that you want to put in there can occupy one or more cells, and you can think about one cell could span a row or column. So if you imagine a grid here, we have 4 by 4. Depending on how I want to see data and how that data gets spatially represented, you could imagine something where we have widgets that are spanning cells, they're over other widgets, one might go down the column, but it's just a way that any way that we want to view data, we can do it, and it's just a matter of how we break up our initial grid. So the more nuance we just want to have more cells, and then any widget can take up you know, more than one cell across the row and column. So it's just a matter of what type of resolution we're ultimately looking for. Okay, so I'm going to flip over to the product, and right off the bat, this is a very simple dashboard that I show in a lot of the demos because it covers a lot of different areas. But you know, out of the box, we have the health overview one, and what we do is out of the box, the best practice is we will have a kind of a product-specific dashboard. So we take all the health checks that roll up into various products, whether it's Shady Edwards or Planning or HFM or S-Base, and put them into a pie chart. So this is one standard type of dashboard. And this is simple, 4 across, 2 down. You know, there's some other standard ones that we do. KPIs dashboard where we have CPU, disk space, and memory. You know, there are, you know, still others. Let's see, again, that have different types of widgets. But we're going to go ahead and create one, and then I'm going to make a short modification to it, and then we're going to look at one other way to view dashboards. So to create a dashboard, we can go into the Dashboard Designer, which is available right on this screen or up in the Tools menu. I'll launch it from here. And here we can see that we have a list of all of our dashboards on the left, and the Designer is really the part on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. Okay, and we're going to call this Essentials. We'll call this Essentials because that's the webinar we're doing. And I'm going to create one that has, to start off, I'm going to have 2 columns. I'm going to have 3 rows, and I'll show why I'm doing that. And I'll just call this Essentials Webinar. Okay, so now what we have is we have our rows and columns. Now I'm going to start adding widgets to the cells. And even though I have 6 cells, I can put even just a couple widgets and have a specify cell to, you know, a row from the other one. So let's start out. I'm going to create in the top left, I'm going to create some instructions, and I'm going to do this with a rich text control. And then on the top right, I'm going to create an SLA list. And what I want to do here is, on the bottom left, I want to have a performance graph. Okay, and on the bottom right, I want to have a health indicator. And what you noticed is that the way I space this, I have some blank cells, and now there's some natural functionality. You see, if I look on the bottom, it kind of looks a little bit goofy here with the way that it's laying them out, because the cell in the middle of the right kind of doesn't know where it should take its space from. So there's options at the very top called flow from left, flow from top. And what I really want is I want this SLA list to flow down. So I say flow from top, and now it's spaced the way I want. This bottom left, I could say flow from top, or I could leave it. I say flow from top, and that's the default functionality, so it takes it. But just for giggles, I could say stop, and what that means is it's not going to allow any other widget to flow into its space. But what I really want is to flow from top. So it has the capability to determine you know, cells where they get their functionality from. So now that I've created it, on each one I can go in and configure it. So I'm just going to double click on each one. And this is just going to be called instructions. So we can say that we're making a dashboard, and we're not sure who's going to view it, so we want to put some instructions here. So here are some instructions. Let's just say show the users what they need to know. And again, you can do all sorts of formatting here that might be relevant to get people's attention. We can change the font size, the colors, we'll make it purple. Okay, and we're done. So we have that one configured. Now the performance graph, we're going to say this is S-Base Disk.io, because I know the one I'm going to pick. So this is just picking from a list of existing graphs that we've created in the performance lab, and I'm just going to pick one that might be relevant. I'll pick S-Base Disk.io. I want it for the last, let's take it for the last hour. Okay, we can take any time range that we want, and we can even pick our refresh frequency. So right now this is going to refresh every 5 minutes. And some widgets you might want to refresh more frequently, like a CPU graph. Okay, but something that might not change a lot, obviously that rich text one that's not changing, so there's nothing to refresh. So you can pick how often you want it to dynamically update based on the nature of the data. Now for SLAs, these are things that I've already configured, so I'm just going to pick a bunch. I'll pick them for the last 24 hours, that's fine. And down here for the health indicator, I just want I'm going to just pick one. I'll pick health indicator for planning, show as pie chart every 5 minutes it'll update as well. Okay, so that's cool. Let's save and close. So very quickly, I created a dashboard. I configured the widgets, and now I'm going to go in and take a look at it. And I just started my agent, so I have no data up here. I could probably change the time range. I'll go back and fix that. What you'll see is here are those 4 widgets that I put in, my instructions, my performance graph, my health indicator, and my SLA chart. And you can see that the way that I laid them out, I chose to use more space for my performance graph and for my SLA list because that could grow, and kept my indicator and my instructions small. So I have an asymmetrical type of layout here. And just as an example, I'm using a lot of space here for this little indicator. I could make better use of this space if I broke this up. So I'm just going to go back into this and make a little modification. I want to add another health indicator here, and there's a number of ways I could do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and create one more column. Okay, and what I'm going to do is here in this column, I'm going to pick another health indicator. Okay, and let's go configure that one to be some other product. So we'll say HFM, health, HFM. Okay, now my SLA list, this should flow. See, it looks like it's flowing properly, so my SLA list will just take up more space. So let's save this and see. Yeah, see, cool. So I was able to add a column and change the layout without rebuilding the entire dashboard. So it's kind of quick and easy to add another thing. And if we really wanted to make it this take up half the screen, what I would have done is I would have broken this up into 4 columns as opposed to 3, and I would have had these widgets just use that space that's available. So again, that was just a really quick way of adding a new dashboard. But while we're here, if you look in this list, you'll see a lot of things that widgets that are available. So I encourage you to play with them and let us know if you have any questions or if you want to set up a session for what might be interesting to you. Things like connected user lists, active alerts. You know, some things we show as both a list as well as a gauge. You'll see it for uptime. You'll see it for SLA. You'll see it for health. So an indicator or gauge is a single item, but a list, you can pick multiple items in the list. Again, it really just depends on how you have your information organized. We have some built-in graphs, this is for help desk ticketing, and then things like calendars for auditing and automation and things like that. So some of these widgets you can configure in a number of different ways. Again, the coverage widgets are something that we would see over here in the stakeholder view. These are all about showing how the product is being managed, from health coverage to KPI coverage to property coverage and so on. So those are some of the widgets. One more thing I want to show you before we wrap up is the desktop widget. So you can get the dashboards as part of the Accelatis UI. You can also get them as part of the portal. But for folks who are in Windows and want to have a helpful little widget in their task tray, you can see the Accelatis icon in my task tray. This is a separate EXE that you can run, and it's basically really simple to configure. And what it allows you to do is have a dashboard available to you right off the task tray. And there's really nothing else here except the dashboard. You can have it. You can decide how big you want it to be when it pops up. It's very simple to show and hide. And I can just come in here, and if I want to change this to look at, let's say, that health overview, and I want to give it a transparent background, I can do that. Oh, no, I need to hit apply, sorry. Show options, so health overview, transparent background, apply. And you can see in real time it changed. So now I have that other dashboard. So it's the actual same widgets that we created. It's just showing it in something that we can deploy. So you might have some users that you don't want to have the whole user interface, but you do want to have them have access to dashboards. That's one way to do it. And of course, dashboards can be secured by the role or by the objects. You could have users have access to only specific dashboards that you want them to be using. Okay. So if we come back, that was the core of dashboards. Hopefully you found this useful. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Coming up next week, Chuck Chakowski will be back talking about enterprise automation, nuts and bolts. So we'll get into the basics of what you can do in automation. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to support or email me directly, and we'll be happy to talk to you further about dashboards. Thank you, everyone.